San Marino, a tiny landlocked country in northern Italy, is the world's smallest independent republic. It's too small to have its own racetrack, but it has its own Grand Prix. And to run it, they go just up the Autostrada a few miles towards Bologna to Imola. And that's where we've come for round 4 of the 1984 Formula One World Championship. Nelson Piquet is on pole position with the Brabham, with Alain Prost in the McLaren alongside him. Row 2, Keke Rosberg for Williams and Derek Warwick for Renault. And row 3, Lauda's McLaren and Arnoux Ferrari. Then Winkelhock and Cheever, Fabi and Patrese, De Angelis and De Cesaris, a little knot of Italians on rows 5 and 6. Alboretto's Ferrari well done with Tombe on row 7. Lafitte and Sura, Hainaut and Mansell on row 9. Then Cecotto and Boutsen, Beloff and Brundle in the Tyrrells, Alliot and Baldi. And at the back, Jonathan Palmer's Ram Hart and Joe Gartner having his first Grand Prix for Azella. Ginzani in the Azella and Ayrton Senna in the Tolman haven't qualified. Much of practice was wet, but it was a dry final session which put Piquet on pole position. But Alain Prost in the McLaren, the current World Championship leader, is up there with him. And the very pro-Ferrari Italian crowd want to see another Ferrari victory, just like we had in Belgium a week ago when Michele Alboreto broke McLaren's run of luck. So off on the final warm-up lap for the Imola circuit, over 3 miles long, uphill, downhill, and there in the pit lane, and not on the grid where he should be, it's Andrea De Cesaris with the Ligier. So once again, De Cesaris, with some sort of mechanical problem, is going to have to start the race from the pit lane. This uphill tight left-hander is the Curva di Tosa. There goes Alboretto's number 27 Ferrari, and look at the Ferrari flags waving from the crowd. They're going to be willing Alboretto to come up from his 13th grid position. From the Piratella corner, it's downhill again to this tight double chicane at Acqua Minerale. Very, very tight indeed. Second gear, bottom gear for some of the cars, and then on the power as they go on uphill again towards the Variante Alfa. And it's corners like this which make this circuit particularly hard on brakes. There's Jonathan Palmer in number 10, bringing up the rear on this warm-up lap. Then it's downhill through another tight double left-hander at Rivazza, and then this treble corner that you see, which leads immediately to the start-finish straight. 60 laps of this tortuous 3-mile circuit ahead of these cars, and a race that promises to be punishing on brakes and punishing on drivers. Piquet hanging back a little bit behind Prost, but it's Piquet who has the pole. Prost in the red and white McLaren taking his number 2 grid position. Behind Piquet on pole, it's Keke Rosberg in the Williams. Behind Prost, the yellow car is the Renault of Derek Warwick. And now all those drivers are looking at the lights on the bridge across the track. There's the red light. There's the green. Oh, and Niki Lauda's left, and Keke Rosberg staggers away. So Lauda and Rosberg almost left for dead on the grid, but Prost storming up past Nelson Piquet into the lead. Alain Prost goes straight into the lead. Out of Tamburello, it's Prost, Piquet, Warwick challenging, Arnoux, Winkelhock, and then one of the Alphas as they come up now into Tosa for the first time. Hard on the apex, up the hill, Prost pulling away. Oh, and Tombe's in trouble. Cheever and Tombe have collided. Eddie Cheever's Alpha clouted Tombe's Renault. Tombe's in the barriers with a very dented front right-hand wheel. And Alain Prost is through the Piratella and on down towards Acqua Minerale. McLaren, Brabham, Renault, Ferrari, ATS, then it's Alboretto. Goodness me, what a start Alboretto has made. Alboretto's come storming up, and look how close that traffic is. Eddie Cheever once again in the middle of it, with one of the Ram Hearts getting pushed onto the curb. Keke Rosberg there in number 6, the Saudia car. Keke Rosberg recovering from that disastrous start, and the car with a flat tyre there just going over the brow was Cheever. That's Tombe running away from his stricken Renault, and we've just seen Eddie Cheever with a flat rear tyre, so that was his penalty for that collision in the crowded first lap. At the end of the crowded first lap, Prost already has a considerable lead. Over the start-finish line, 59 laps to go, and it's Prost pulling away now from Piquet's Brabham. Derek Warwick is there in 3rd place with the Renault. And fourth, it's still René Arnoux. There he is in the red car. And fifth, the ATS going once again of Winkelhock into the Tosa. And look at Prost pulling this lead out, but Derek Warwick challenges for second place. Arnoux, Winkelhock and Alboreto following, but it's a battle for second place. Nelson Piquet has a very determined Derek Warwick with him as they come over the brow of the hill. Prost going away down the hill through Piratella, and there is Chiva. Chiva having that rear tyre changed. It was indeed a flat rear tyre from the collision with Tombe. On goes the new rear tyre, out goes Chiva at the tail of the field. No doubt very anxious to make up for a disastrous handicap at the beginning. And another man with a handicap who's going well is Andrea de Cesaris, who did start from the pit lane as we suspected and is already carving his way up through the field. So is Niki Lauda, whom you saw make a disastrous start. So indeed is Keke Rosberg. So Prost goes through. There's the Brabham and there's the Renault of Piquet and Warwick. This is the downhill Rivazza before the start-finish line. And still Piquet has Warwick in his mirrors. Still Arnoux is fourth with Winkelhock fifth. And it's Alboreto in the Ferrari sixth. So Ferrari's fourth and sixth, and the Ferrari flags waving in the crowd every time they come through. Those Italians are desperate to see a good Ferrari performance here. They'll be cheering on Arnoux, they'll be cheering on Alboreto, they'll be booing everybody else. Such is the magic that Ferrari holds here. They're built, our Ferraris, just up the road in Modena. And they had, of course, a wonderful run in Zolder just a week ago. But now it's Piquet in second place, Warwick in third, and Arnoux is not close enough to get on to terms with them. But behind them, I see Alboreto closing on Winkelhock. So Alboreto's march up the field from 13th place on the grid to what is now 6th place in the race progresses further. And Prost is getting away, while Piquet has to keep a defensive second place. Look how close Warwick is getting in the Aqua Minerale. All the time, Prost pulling away. Up the hill out of the Aqua Minerale goes the second place battle. Over the brow of the hill, on down towards the Variante Alpha. Prost goes away from the Variante Alpha and on his way down to Rivazza. And still Piquet has this second place, still Warwick is third, and Prost is pulling away. And while you see the battle for second, a storming drive we're seeing on the lap charts from Niki Lauda. There's Patrick Tombe's car being moved to a position of safety by the marshals as Prost completes 3 laps. Behind him, that battle still progressing for second place between Piquet and Warwick, and still René Arnoux in 4th place, leading the Ferrari challenge. Oh, and that's Nigel Mansell in the dirt. Nigel Mansell, who had a very unhappy practice, all sorts of problems for him in this morning. He started in his spare car, he was very unhappy about it, and now after only 3 laps, his race has come to an end. Piquet now at Tosa. Warwick still keeping in contact with Piquet. Still the Ferrari in 4th place of Arnoux. And it's a Ferrari in 5th place. A red car is 5th. That means that Michele Alboreto has got past Manfred Winkelhock into 5th place. Ferraris 4 and 5. And that will have elicited a big cheer from the Italian crowd. Still Piquet holding off Warwick for 2nd place at Aqua Minerale. Both of them clipping the first 2 curbs and just missing the 3rd on this very, very tight corner. Then on up the hill, and the Ferraris are pursuing. Arnoux 4th, but Alboreto are closing 5th. There's Arnoux, but Alboreto it is who's come up from 13th starting position, remember, now to 5th place, and I think he's going to go a lot further. Alboreto, the man who won at Zolder a week ago, who has shown that he really is the true leader of the Ferrari team. End of lap 4 now. Prost and Piquet away from Warwick now. Piquet has definitely shaken Warwick off. There are the 2 Ferraris in the background. In 6th place it's still Winkelhock, and Niki Lauda coming into the picture now in 7th place. Niki Lauda is now 7th, ahead of the Alpha of Riccardo Patrese, who is 8th. Prost, meanwhile, all on his own already. That's an indication of just how quick this McLaren is. It was easily fastest in race trim this morning. There is Nigel Mansell's car being moved also to a position of safety, and there we see the gap, 4.9 seconds already after 4 laps, is Prost's lead over Piquet. Warwick a couple of seconds down now from Piquet, so Warwick has, for the time being anyway, let Piquet get away, and quite soon I think Warwick's mirrors are going to be full of Ferrari. This is lap 5 now. Down the hill to Rivazza. There is Keke Rosberg walking home. Keke Rosberg left on the grid, you'll remember, came through all that traffic, but he has now parked the Williams and he is walking back to the pits. And while Prost appears to be running away with this race, all sorts of splendid battles going on behind 7th man Niki Lauda. As we said, 8th it's Patrese, 9th now Teo Fabi, Nelson Piquet's teammate in the Brabham team, 10th is Elio De Angelis in the Lotus, and a strong 11th is the non-turbocharged Tyrrell with Martin Brundle at the wheel. Now, what we don't know yet, as we never do in the early stages of the race, is who is trying to run the full distance on one set of tyres, who is going to stop for fresh rubber part the way through. Derek Warwick in 3rd place, still keeping in contact with Nelson Piquet. There is Piquet, there is Warwick as they come through the Tosa corner. And Warwick now definitely under pressure from the 2 Ferraris. 28 leads 27, that's Arnoux leading Alboreto, and Warwick being reeled in steadily by these Ferraris. Interesting to ponder on which are the tyres which are most effective today, which make of tyres, because it's a Michelin car, a Michelin shod car leading, it's Michelin shod cars in 2nd and 3rd places, but the Ferraris are on Goodyears and they're closing. Piquet, Warwick, and there the Ferraris, as we watch now Alain Prost through the downhill Rivazza section, empty road behind him before Piquet comes into sight, on the brakes through the first apex of Rivazza. Last time they passed our box, we put the watch on the gap between Warwick and the 2 Ferraris. We made it 2.4 seconds, but the waves from the Italian crowd are confirmation that that gap is getting closer. Back onto the start-finish section, and Alboreto very close to Arnoux now. Is Arnoux going to fight off his own teammate, or is he going to make it easier for Alboreto to get by? Because clearly Alboreto has closed on Arnoux, and it's Alboreto who is the faster of the 2 at the moment. Through Tamburello. Up the newly named Villeneuve corner. That's that fast right-hand sweep there. And into Tosa. And seeing those 2 Ferraris together reminds us of the battle between the 2 Ferraris 2 years ago, when Villeneuve and Didier Pironi were wheel to wheel for almost the whole race. Pironi won the race even though the pit signals told him to let Villeneuve by, and Villeneuve wasn't a bit happy about it after the race. Sadly, a fortnight later he died in practice for the Belgian Grand Prix, and his memory very much with us here at Imola. There are Villeneuve stickers, there are Villeneuve portraits almost everywhere you look. And that is Patrese. That's Patrese into the pits, coming slowly into the pits with the Alfa, getting out of the car indeed. That's a shame, because Patrese was running strongly in 9th place. And now look at the 4th car in this group, because Niki Lauda now is up with the Ferraris. While the Ferraris have closed on Derek Warwick, Niki Lauda has closed on the 2 of them. Lauda, who made a disastrously slow start, has come storming up through the field, and so we look now at the battle for 3rd place. Nelson Piquet has pulled away in 2nd, and it's Warwick 3rd, Arnoux 4th, Alboreto 5th, and Lauda 6th. Just as close as that, Manfred Winkelhock has fallen away, and it's now a 4-car battle for 3rd place, and Lauda is the one who's pushing hardest. Immediately Alboreto loses contact with Arnoux as he starts to drive defensively to hold Lauda off. Not defensively enough. Lauda is on the inside at Villeneuve. They're side by side as they go into Tosa, but Alboreto slams the door in Lauda's face. Lauda has to hang back. Lauda challenging again as they go up the hill. Arnoux moves across, but it's Alboreto and Lauda side by side. Lauda goes ahead at Piratella. Lauda is through. Nothing Alboreto could do about that at all. Lauda is not to be denied, and immediately Lauda gets away from Alboreto, and in the Acqua Minerale, Lauda is on his way to attacking his next victim, which is going to be René Arnoux. Now, Alboreto lost contact with Arnoux while he was trying to hold off Lauda. Can he make up that gap? Certainly Arnoux is not letting Niki Lauda get that close to him on this lap, but as they come down the hill to Rivazza now, under braking, the McLaren closes on the Ferrari. Derek Warwick is ahead of them, still third. Arnoux still fourth as they pass the stricken Williams of Keke Rosberg. And Alboreto has fallen away now. Alboreto's charge up the field temporarily seems to have been checked. Back onto the start-finish section, Arnoux, Lauda and Alboreto. Three red cars blasting over the start-finish line. The yellow car in front of them in third place is the Renault of Warwick. But Arnoux still has this fourth place, and this was where Lauda attacked last time. Lauda attacks the other side this time. He's on the outside at Villeneuve, and through sheer power, he forces his way ahead as they come up into Tosa, and Arnoux is demoted as well. So Niki Lauda absolutely storming through the field. We've just had confirmation from the timekeepers that Lauda has already set the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 35.655 seconds, and remember they're still pretty full of fuel. And how long is it going to take Niki Lauda now to set about attacking Derek Warwick in third place? We've got a McLaren in the lead, we've got a McLaren in fourth place and moving up. Remember that the McLarens dominated the proceedings first in Brazil and then in South Africa, where they were first and second. They had a bad race in round 3 in Belgium, but at the moment anyway, the McLarens are making the running. Alain Prost the leader, Nelson Piquet in a lonely second place in the Brabham. This is the battle for third as Arnoux fights back. Warwick, Lauda, Arnoux and Alboreto. And there is the other Williams into the pits. That's Jacques Lafitte. Jacques Lafitte, they're jacking the car up and automatically setting about changing the tyres, but a gesture from Lafitte says, don't bother, I'm getting out, my race is over. And Lauda's race is by no means over. He's right up with Warwick now. The TAG turbo engine, Porsche designed, in the back of the McLaren has lots and lots of power, and Lauda is tucked into the slipstream of the Renault as they come over the brow of the hill. Lauda has a think about the inside, but hangs back at Piratella, and now down towards the impossibly tight Acqua Minerale. Lauda decides to wait for a while. He closes right up under braking, but it's not a place where you can overtake. And so Lauda now hangs back briefly before the accelerative charge up the hill and then over the hill towards the Variante Alta. And now Lauda is close once more through the Variante Alta. Warwick driving very coolly, very, very tidily. He's not being at all ruffled by Lauda, but he knows that Lauda is putting the pressure on. Down now into Rivazza. Nelson Piquet not very far ahead of this battle. Still Piquet second, still Warwick third, still Lauda fourth, but not, I think, for long. Now at the Variante Bassa, which leads on to the start-finish section, Warwick, Lauda and the two Ferraris. They've already got back markers to lap, and it's almost 15 seconds Prost's lead to Piquet. Warwick just 5 seconds behind, and Warwick driving his heart out to keep Lauda away. The two back markers ahead of them, it's Gartner and Alliot to be passed, and that could change things somewhat, because both these cars have got to pick their way through. And the back markers, certainly Gartner keeping out of the way, and Lauda charging one side then the other at Villeneuve. But Warwick isn't having any of that. On the brakes hard, Alliot keeps out of the way. Lauda briefly delayed there, but now both Lauda and Warwick are through. Up the hill once more, Lauda tucked under the rear wing of that Renault. The two Ferraris following their way through. Lauda challenges briefly at Piratella. Warwick's having none of that. On down towards Acqua Minerale, and once more Lauda will have to wait, because it's very tight and very narrow here, and once again he closes under braking and gets ready for the charge up the hill towards the Variante Alta. Meanwhile, what the crowded grandstands want is not a battle between Lauda, who's not a man they love because he drove for Ferrari and then turned his back on the Maranello team. They want to see the Ferraris closing up. But Lauda cares nothing of that. He only cares for the back of the Renault and getting a sight of the front of it. On the brakes now into Rivazza. Lauda couldn't be much closer. And of course, when you're that close to a car with the aerofoils and the air tunnels underneath, the handling of your own car and the air over the front wings of your own car can be disturbed. It can be very difficult driving in the disturbed air behind a car in front. That doesn't help overtaking at all either. And under acceleration out of the Variante Bassa, the Renault now gets away from the McLaren. Warwick pulling away from Lauda, and indeed René Arnoux getting a little bit closer. And I think there's some smoke. I think there's some oily smoke coming out of the back of the McLaren. Certainly the McLaren lost speed as they came out of the Variante Bassa. He's closing up again now, but I think that car is smoking. Let's look, it is smoking. Oh, it's stopping. Lauda is stopping, Lauda is out. Lauda pulls the McLaren onto the grass. What a terrible shame. That wonderful storming drive up the field has come to an end. Yes, he's getting out of the car. Niki Lauda's race is run. And what a shame that the crowd are booing and whistling. As we said earlier, they don't love Lauda because he's a man who turned his back on Ferrari. In fact, some of them are clapping now as Lauda walks home. So, one McLaren out, the other McLaren still in the lead. There it is, Alain Prost at the head of the field, coming up now to complete 16 of the 60 laps. Let's run down the order. Prost's McLaren leads. Piquet's Brabham in second place. Derek Warwick breathing a little easier now that he's got no Niki Lauda in his mirrors. He's third, but he has got in his mirrors the two Ferraris of René Arnoux and in fifth place Michele Alboreto. A new sixth man now, Teo Fabi in the other Brabham, has come past Manfred Winkelhock into sixth place. Winkelhock is still seventh. Going well in eighth place, Elio De Angelis, and in a storming ninth place, Martin Brundle, still going well with the Tyrrell. Now, Prost will have seen the McLaren of Lauda parked by the road as he went on his way out of Tosa, and he'll be no doubt looking even more carefully at the dials, listening even more carefully at the engine note. There's the gap, 20.69 seconds from Prost to Piquet, and Warwick is less than 4 seconds behind Piquet, and here are the two Ferraris, and Alboreto is back up with Arnoux again. When Lauda went past him, he seemed to lose heart briefly, but he's got all his heart back again. The Ferrari flags waving every time the two Ferraris come round. Arnoux then in fourth place, Alboreto in fifth, and Warwick is still third. Aqua Minerale, look at the Renault ahead of the two Ferraris. It's not very far away. And that, oh, and that's Prost going very slowly. Alain Prost going extremely slowly. What is his problem now? In fact, he seems to have quickened up again, and we're getting news that Alain Prost spun on the downhill Rivazza corner. Alain Prost, the leader, spun the McLaren, but whatever the problem was, perhaps he made a most untypical mistake. Oh, yes, we're seeing it now. This is a replay. Going into Rivazza, where he would be braking, a little glance at the mirrors, and one of the arrows goes by, Marc Sure's arrows goes by, and the excitement continues, because here is René Arnoux in the pits. We're on lap 22, so this could be an early routine tyre stop. That's certainly what it looks like. We didn't put the watch on it, but the tyres all going clearly on, the mechanics waiting at the front to tell him when it's ready to go. Off the jacks. Away you go, say the mechanics, spinning the rear wheels there. 13.4 seconds we get the time from the officials. And he's come out in front of Winkelhock. That means that Arnoux has only dropped to sixth place during that pit stop. His own teammate Alboreto went by, of course. So did Teo Fabi in the Brabham. So they're now fourth and fifth, and we've got a new second man. Derek Warwick has gone through as Alboreto comes in for his routine pit stop. Derek Warwick has taken second place from Nelson Piquet. So, in the lead, Prost. In second place now, Warwick. There's Alboreto, a quick word, how are you getting on, says one of the technicians. And now Mauro Forgieri is talking to Alboreto. Alboreto shaking his head, there's a problem. They've got the tyres changed, but there's a problem with Alboretto's car. They're taking the engine cover off, and Alboretto talking there to the mechanics, shaking his head in despair. And he's still in the pits, and the rest of the field are streaming by. So Warwick now in second place, as we said. Piquet now third. This will promote Teo Fabi to fourth place. There is Warwick and there is Piquet, so that's now the new second and third position. Arnoux will now come up into fifth place, and we're going to get Elio De Angelis now in sixth, because De Angelis has passed Winkelhock. Yes, out of the car gets the Belgian Grand Prix winner, Michele Alboretto. He started from 13th place. He came up as far as fourth, but he walks away into the back of the pit, and one of the Ferraris is out. The Italian commentator has just broadcast that news to the crowd, a great groan from the crowd, and now all their Ferrari hopes are on the shoulders of René Arnoux. Well, René Arnoux made his pit stop, and he's going pretty strongly now. He's behind Teo Fabi in fifth place, and he's looking good. And Nelson Piquet certainly isn't giving up on Derek Warwick. Warwick, having got by him, we rather expected that he might pull away because he caught him comparatively easily. We wonder whether Piquet had a problem. But now it's Piquet who's charging back, and Warwick's new second place looking in a lot of danger now as they come down through the Variante Alta on towards Rivazza, and Warwick now being challenged hard. He had that challenge from Niki Lauda, he fought it off, and Niki Lauda blew his engine in his efforts to stay with Warwick and indeed to pass Warwick. But now Piquet is right on the Renault's tail as they come into our sight here at the start-finish section through the Variante Basso. And Warwick turns on the power, Piquet turns on the power, these distinctive puffs of flame from the exhaust pipes of the turbocharged cars as they accelerate up through the gears, and Piquet tucked into the slipstream as they go through Tamburello on towards Villeneuve, and Piquet had a little think about going on the outside. Warwick moves across to shut the door to take his line for Villeneuve. In now to Tossa, on the brakes hard, the two of them close up. The second apex of Tossa on up the hill. Which has the more acceleration? The Brabham. The Brabham gets right up with the Renault. The Brabham really going strongly and over the brow. Piquet retakes second place. What a splendid battle between these two. And no doubt at all about that. Nelson Piquet simply had more horsepower as they went up the hill out of Tossa towards Piratella. They're now out of Acqua Minerale, and once again the Brabham moves away from the Renault. The Brabham going very strongly indeed, and perhaps the Renault has lost a little bit of power. And that's De Angelis' stop. The mechanics hurl away the used wheels and tyres. On go the new ones. De Angelis in sixth place when he came in, and they finished three of them. They've finished four of them now. And away he goes. It looked a little bit messy at the end, but De Angelis is away back in the race. We look down now on the lap chart, and I reckon he will have come out in ninth place, having come in sixth place. So the routine tyre stops coming thick and fast. And we said René Arnoux was going strongly. René Arnoux is now right up with Teo Fabi. Arnoux, with fresh tyres on the Ferrari, has caught up with the number 2 Brabham of Teo Fabi. So this is the battle for fourth place as they come down through Rivazza. René Arnoux with all the Ferrari hopes on his shoulders alone after the retirement of Michele Alboretto. Up to the Variante Bassa, the Italian crowd cheering once more. They're not interested in the fact that Alain Prost is leading and that Piquet is back in second place or that Warwick is third. What they care about is that this fourth place may very soon belong to a Ferrari. Into Tamburello. No, Arnoux can't do it there. And this Brabham very, very quick with its BMW power. What can the Ferrari do about it as they come up to Villeneuve? No, Arnoux isn't close enough this time. Now, as they go onto the brakes in Tossa, Arnoux goes up the inside. No, he's not close enough this time either. And Teo Fabi, having, remember, only his fourth Grand Prix for Brabham, driving in a very mature way indeed. René Arnoux is a worrying man to have behind you, but Teo Fabi, so quick in Indianapolis racing last year, so quick this year as a worthy number 2 to Nelson Piquet, and at Acqua Minerale the Ferrari is not as close as it was. On out of Acqua Minerale, up the hill, and now the Ferrari does catch, and the Ferrari attacks over the brow. Can't do it there either. This is the Variante Alta. Now on down the hill towards Rivazza, and another punishing corner for brakes. Arnoux once again swings to the inside. Can he get through? Under braking, he looks at the inside, but it's not close enough. And Fabi holds the place once more. René Arnoux, a very determined man when his blood's up. He sits tucked down in the cockpit with his head thrust forward, a very distinctive profile in the cockpit, and out of the Variante Bassa, on the power once again, up through the gearbox, 650 horsepower going through the wheels of both cars. And now once again the Ferrari attacks. He looks at the outside briefly at Tamburello. Can't do anything about that. Up to Villeneuve once more. Is he going to try the inside for Villeneuve? He does try for the inside, and he's got it. Now, the Brabham is close in, and the Brabham bottoms under braking. Did you see the shower of sparks? And Fabi has got the second place back, but he was offline there, and the Ferrari almost goes on the grass as Fabi shuts the door over the brow. Teo Fabi driving very, very hard indeed. And Arnoux, after that little moment of grass cutting over the top of the hill, Arnoux loses a little bit of ground there. And the leader's in the pits. This is the leader's pit stop. This is a routine tyre stop. We believe it is indeed. The tyres go on, the whistle's blowing from the marshals to clear the pit lane. And away goes Prost, a very clean, clear stop indeed. 11.37 seconds was the time. And that means that Alain Prost has come back out in front in the lead still. So a perfect pit stop for Alain Prost, just as Alboreto had in Belgium last week. Prost has been able to come into the pits, and with the slowing down, the stopping and the starting up again, he's out again and still in the lead. And still in fourth place is Teo Fabi. Despite all of René Arnoux' efforts, Teo Fabi, the little Italian, in the British Brabham with the German BMW engine, staying ahead of the little Frenchman in the all-Italian Ferrari. Out of Tamburello, the Ferrari closes on the Brabham. Into Villeneuve now, and Arnoux is pulling up alongside. He's on the left for this right-hand corner, but the next corner is a left-hander. Fabi almost forced onto the grass there, but Arnoux has the inside line. And as they come out of Tosa, the Ferrari is through at last. Fabi tries to fight back, but the Ferrari is away now. But indeed, Fabi does attack once more at Piratella. Down to the Acqua Minerale, the Ferrari has the line, and through Acqua Minerale, surely there's nothing that Fabi can do about that. Up, out of Acqua Minerale, on up the hill, and René Arnoux is pulling away. The waved Ferrari flags in the crowd show the delight that René Arnoux has made up a place for the prancing horse. And now at Variante Alta, Fabi seems to have given up that particular battle. He has slipped right back, and Arnoux is pulling well away. Look at those waving flags. On now down to Rivazza. This is lap 32 of the 60, so we're more than half distance. And that's Manfred Winkelhock parked. Manfred Winkelhock with the ATS, with the BMW engine, has stopped on the grass. He has obviously been in trouble for a while because he was running in 7th position. He'd slipped down to 11th, and now it seems he's irrevocably out of the race. Meanwhile, Alain Prost, with his pit stop safely through, is comfortably out in front, and his nearest challenger, Nelson Piquet, hasn't made a pit stop yet, and we guess that he will not do so. We guess that Nelson Piquet is going to try and do the full distance on one set of tyres, as indeed he did in Belgium a week ago, before blowing his engine comprehensively right at the end. The marshals trying to remove Winkelhock's ATS. They're going to lift it with a crane, I think, hence the loop through the rollover bar, as Alain Prost goes on his now lonely way. We were just talking here about that spin that we saw him have earlier, And the fact that he had it going into a corner, going into Ravazza, may well mean that on this circuit, which is so punishing on brakes, that the leading McLaren may be having braking problems. That is a spin for the Toleman. That's Johnny Cecotto's Toleman putting down great black rubber lines as he accelerates away after a spin right in the middle of Acqua Minerale. He could easily have got in somebody's way, but didn't. 18.8 seconds is Prost's lead over Piquet, and still Warwick close to Piquet, about 1.5 seconds gap there, and 7.5 seconds behind Warwick is René Arnoux. So René Arnoux, as quick as anybody on the circuit now. Remember that he is on fresh tyres, as indeed is Alain Prost, but the other runners in the first 6 have not made pit stops for new tyres. The arrows there of Thierry Boutsen, lapped by René Arnoux. Thierry Boutsen using the Cosworth engine this week. It was Marc Sure's turn to use the BMW, and Alain Prost storming his way on down the hill into now Acqua Minerale. So tidy, so smooth, Alain Prost. So perhaps the braking problem that we were guessing at is not that serious, because certainly his lap times remain consistent. Perhaps indeed it was simply a mistake. And that's Cecotto's Toleman coming in for fresh tyres after its spin. Johnny Cecotto, the only Toleman in the race, because Ayrton Senna didn't qualify, and quite a row surrounding the Tolemans in qualifying. They very nearly didn't run in the race at all due to a dispute with Pirelli, their tyre company. Michelin tyres, tag turbo engine, McLaren chassis, designed of course by John Barnard, the Ron Dennis run team, with Alain Prost at the wheel. Alain Prost, the current World Championship leader before the start of this race, and if he can keep going, he's going to add even more points to his tally. Niki Lauda, of course, out with a blown engine. But while Alain Prost is comfortably out in front, we've got a real battle suddenly for second, third and fourth places, because Piquet, the first of those 3 cars, is second. But the real battle for third and fourth between Warwick and René Arnoux. René Arnoux' progress on fresh tyres has brought him right up now to third man Derek Warwick, and he is challenging. So Warwick, who had to fight off first Niki Lauda, then Nelson Piquet, only to see Piquet go past, has now got a Ferrari to fight off. And as they go up out of Acqua Minerale, the Renault, still with plenty of power, manages to pull out just a little bit from the Ferrari. You see the gaps there, 20.5 seconds between Prost and Piquet, but then they're very close. Less than 2 seconds Piquet to Warwick, and very much less than that Warwick to Arnoux. Through the Ravazza, and under braking the Ferrari seems to close. On the straight bits the Renault seems to pull away just a little bit. The Variante Bassa, and on the power once more, away from the start-finish line. Arnoux pursuing, and Arnoux very close, Arnoux alongside, and this is under sheer power. Arnoux just walks past the Renault as they go through Tamburello. Arnoux just stormed by the Renault, and although Warwick tucks in behind, I don't think there's very much that Warwick can do about that. Suddenly the Ferrari seemed to get some extra power from somewhere, or perhaps the Renault faltered a little, and the Ferrari is back into third place, and once again the Ferrari flags wave in the crowd. And Arnoux pulling well away there from Warwick. Now, can Arnoux perform a similar closing act on the second man, Nelson Piquet? It may well be that to have changed tyres, as did the Michelin-shod Alain Prost and the Goodyear-shod René Arnoux, it could well be that that was the right thing to do. Certainly Jonathan Palmer thinks it may be the right thing to do, because he's in for his pit stop now, and that's an Arrows parking. That is the BMW-powered Arrows of Marc Sure, and he is out. So 2 BMW-powered cars have retired in the last few laps. We've seen the departure of Winkelhock and then the departure of Marc Sure. That's Sure's first drive with turbo power, incidentally. And as we said, this week it was Thierry Boutsen's turn to drive the Cosworth-powered car, and Boutsen is in the race and still going. Marc Sure out of the car, taking his gloves off, opening his visor, and the marshals push the car to a safer position. And look how close René Arnoux now got to Nelson Piquet. 18 laps left to run, and that second place really being threatened by the Ferrari now. Down the hill to the Rivazza. Let's watch and see where the Ferrari makes up. Certainly under braking, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the Brabham as they come out of Rivazza now and into the Variante Bassa. Out of the Variante Bassa, back onto the start-finish straight. It's here that the power tells. And both engines sounding as crisp and as healthy as they did right at the start. There the gap, 20.3 seconds still between Prost and Piquet, but Arnoux was 1 second behind at the end of lap 42. I would think it's rather less now. This is Tosa. And Derek Warwick already left over 7 seconds behind the flying Ferrari. And indeed, Warwick's engine not sounding particularly happy when he passed us here on the start-finish straight last time through. Definitely a sort of spluttery misfire from the Renault. But these two cars healthy, the two drivers giving their all. Arnoux, who's made a pit stop for fresh tyres, and Piquet, who's on the rubber that he started the race with. And the Ferrari not getting any closer now. So Piquet seems to have responded to the challenge, and the Ferrari is nowhere on the circuit close enough to put in a real attack on the Brabham. Down the hill once more to Rivazza, and perhaps the Ferrari is a mite closer than they were a lap ago, but it's only just a tiny fraction. You need a stopwatch to tell the difference. Both drivers using every inch of the road and occasionally using a little bit of the curb. Out of the Variante Bassa, and again under acceleration the Ferrari doesn't get any closer to the Brabham. Looking down the order then, still Prost's McLaren leads. Still Piquet has this second place, as you see, with Arnoux in third place and challenging. Derek Warwick a slowing fourth. We've got another theory about his problem. We reckon hearing him accelerate out of the Variante Bassa and down the start-finish straight that he's changing from third gear into fifth. We think he's missing out fourth, so there could well be a gearbox problem to add to that apparent misfire for the Renault. Teo Fabi in the second Brabham still fifth. And in sixth place now, we've got Andrea de Cesaris. Remember, he started from the pit lane after the whole of the rest of the field had got away in the Ligier, and he's put in a really stirring drive up the field. We haven't seen any of it on the screen, but believe me, de Cesaris is driving the race of his life, and he is up in sixth place with the Renault-powered Ligier. In seventh place, it's Elio De Angelis. He had a stop for tyres, remember. In eighth place, Eddie Cheever, who had a stop right at the beginning to mend the puncture that he got when he collided with Patrick Tambay, so he's put in a good drive as well. And in ninth and 10th places, the two non-turbocharged Cosworth-powered Tyrrells of Martin Brundle and Stefan Beloff. The Tyrrells 9th and 10th, and they haven't yet been lapped. Once more in the Variante Basso and out of it, and Nelson Piquet, by my stopwatch that time, actually pulled back a little tiny fraction from the Ferrari. Perhaps Nelson Piquet has turned up the turbocharger boost a little bit. He'll have a readout in the cockpit which will tell him exactly how much fuel he's got left, and of course he mustn't turn the boost up too much or he'll use too much fuel. They've now got Philippe Alliot's Ram March to lap, and that could be a factor as they work their way past the slower cars. Alliot pulling across to the left-hand side of the road, but he doesn't let Piquet by, and Piquet has to lift off then. Arnoux posts fastest lap of the race. The blue flag for Alliot. Now Alliot moves and Piquet goes through and splits the two of them at Acqua Minerale. So a back marker has played a role, and it's going to be interesting to see how quickly Arnoux can get past Alliot. He does it now on the straight section, the Ferrari flag's waving again, and immediately he's back with Piquet. So that little delay doesn't seem to have made very much difference to the battle for second place. because once again the Ferrari closes right up. In fact, under braking, look at that Ferrari get yards off the Brabham. So Arnoux is now really putting on the pressure, and this time, despite the business with the back marker, the Ferrari is visibly closer as they come into the Variante Bassa, and that Ferrari is very much closer. Now what's going to happen under power out of the Variante onto the start-finish straight, up through the gearbox, and Piquet pulls away just a fraction, but the Ferrari's there with him. 0.62 of a second on the computer. Warwick 24, almost 25 seconds further back. Fabi still there in 5th place, and De Cesaris 6th, and Prost 20 seconds in hand. We look down now the lower orders with Chiva 8th, Brundle and Beloff 9th and 10th, Thierry Boutsen in the non-turbocharged Arrows is 11th, and Johnny Cecotto after that spin and stop for extra tyres is a further 2 laps down, with Baldi and Palmer and Gartner still running. 13 laps still to go, and this Ferrari-Brabham battle continues. Aqua Minerale, the Brabhams pulled away just a little bit again. Arnoux seems to make it up here and there and then lose it, and one wonders whether Piquet is playing with the boost, playing with the power, and just pulling an extra little bit out of the bag when he needs to. He doesn't want to go any faster than he has to. He wants to preserve his fuel. He knows that Alain Prost is completely uncatchable, but he wants to drive just fast enough to keep this second place and keep the Ferrari behind. Out of Rivazza, once more into the Variante Bassa. And the gap, as you can see, is a lot bigger than it was last time round. And it must be very frustrating for René Arnoux. Whatever he does, he just doesn't seem to be able to get closer. And he too, of course, will have a readout in the cockpit of exactly how much fuel he's got left. There you see a glimpse of Martin Brundle briefly. Ahead of them, the Azella is Gartner, who's being lapped. He's well down the order, but Martin Brundle at the back of the picture there, still going well in 9th place. Gartner is lapped by Piquet and still has to be lapped by Arnoux as they go through Tosa and up the hill. Plenty more power in the Ferrari than in the Alfa-powered Azella. That's the old V12 Alfa in that car, non-turbocharged, and it gives René Arnoux' Ferrari no trouble at all to go storming by. Piquet is out of Aqua Minerale as Arnoux goes into it, and still Arnoux just doesn't seem to be able to close. And the crowd a little bit subdued now as we see the leader lapping Eddie Chiva. Eddie Chiva still going well. He's in 8th place behind Elio De Angelis, but Alain Prost, whom we haven't seen for a while, still out there with that 20-second lead. And I was just saying the crowd a little bit subdued because having lost Alboreto, they can't quite understand why their beloved Ferrari number 28 in the hands of René Arnoux isn't able to dispose of the world champion Nelson Piquet. There Chiva with immediately behind him the black car, that's the Tyrrell number 4 of Stefan Beloff, who's in 10th place. And Piquet in the pits with smoke behind him. Piquet out of the race, surely. Telltale smoke. Nelson Piquet drives into the pits, and indeed off come the seat belts, out comes Nelson Piquet. So yet again Nelson Piquet's engine has blown, yet again the Brabham has stopped before the end of the race, and Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion, has yet to score a single championship point this year. So Piquet out, that's cruel luck for him again. 18 seconds, all but 100th, is the gap between Prost and Arnoux. So Arnoux has closed on Prost. It was 20 seconds between Prost and Piquet before Piquet's retirement. And Alain Prost now with a dozen laps left to run. Alain Prost will have that gap on his pit signals, and I think he's going to be able to maintain that gap, is he not? He too wanting to preserve his fuel. That's Fabi slowing. That's Fabi as the leader goes by. The Brabham number 2. We've just seen Brabham number 1 come into the pits, and now Brabham number 2 of Teo Fabi running in 5th place behind Derek Warwick, and indeed closing on Derek Warwick. Farby, it looks, is also out of the race, so a miserable moment that lap for Brabham. Indeed, Farby brings Brabham number 2 into the pits. The number 1 Brabham has already been wheeled away into the back of the pit. The mechanics cluster round and Farby is out of the race. So now, with 6 laps left to run, with both the Brabhams out and with Derek Warwick slipping down the field to 5th, what we're now watching is a superb late battle for 3rd place between the astonishing Andrea de Cesaris, the man who started his Ligier from the pit lane after everybody else had stopped. He has come through to a magnificent 3rd place. He's got Elio De Angelis on his tail, who is 4th, and these two are battling over 4 points in the World Championship. Yes, there's the confirmation, 6 laps to go, and as they go up over the brow into the Variante Alta, the Ligier with a Renault engine, the Lotus also with a Renault engine, both of them with Italian drivers, De Cesaris and De Angelis seem extremely evenly matched. Through Rivazza for the 44th time. Now, and De Cesaris a little bit untidy coming into the Variante Bassa with one wheel right up the curb there, and De Angelis using that little mistake by De Cesaris to close right up. The Ligier, the Lotus, about 2 lengths, 3 lengths apart now as they go down the straight. The Ligier pulls away a little bit. De Angelis closes up as they go into Tamburello. De Angelis, remember, did have a pit stop for tyres. De Cesaris has done the whole distance on his one set. And now into Tossa. Under braking, the Lotus closes again, but the Ligier looking quite steady up the hill, both of them using a little bit of the curb as they come out. De Angelis doesn't get close enough as they go over the brow, and they come now down into Piratella and on to Acqua Minerale. Yes, more curb there from De Cesaris. De Cesaris looking a little bit wild now, using every inch of the road and quite a bit that isn't there at all. Out of Acqua Minerale, De Angelis once again close up the hill. The Ligier pulls away a little bit. And a fascinating battle because, as I said, both of them with identical engines. Chiva is 6th a lap behind, 26.2 seconds the gap between Prost and Arnoux, so Prost has pulled out a little bit. Arnoux, I think, has decided to settle for 2nd place and preserve his fuel. Beloff has gone ahead of Brundle now. That happened in an interesting little moment lapping Jonathan Palmer, and Brundle was held up briefly and Beloff was able to go ahead. Sliding the Ligier out of the Variante Basso goes De Cesaris, and we see the leader once more quite comfortably on his own in these closing stages, and he has just lapped Derek Warwick. The car behind him, Derek Warwick, whose car sounds very splattery indeed, and still he seems to be changing from 3rd to 5th gear as he passes us anyway, so obviously an unhappy man, Derek Warwick, who has seen his 2nd place now become 5th. Warwick currently 2nd in the World Championship, Prost currently the leader, so both of them extremely aware of their respective points positions, and Prost must be rather pleased to see himself lap Derek Warwick. Through the Rivazza once more. Warwick following but slipping back. They pass the still abandoned Williams of Keke Rosberg. And that's Beloff having made a pit stop. Stefan Beloff has made a very quick pit stop. That will have been for water because the Tyrrells use water injection, and it's also to help make sure that there's enough water in the car to bring it up to the minimum weight limit for post-race weighing. But the other Tyrrell has stopped. There it is, parked on the left of the picture. That's Martin Brundle's Tyrrell, which has come to a halt with just 2 laps to go. That's very bad luck for the English driver. So as Prost goes on his way, Brundle is out of the race. Arnoux still 2nd in the Ferrari, so the crowd has still got a red car to cheer on, and it's in 2nd place, but they would be much happier if it was ahead of this red car, the red and white Marlboro McLaren. Up to Variante Alta. Warwick, in fact, not losing any ground now to Alain Prost. This shows that Prost really is just driving home to finish. He doesn't want any irony to spoil this wonderful race that he's had. He certainly doesn't want the indignity of running out of petrol, and so he is literally cruising to finish. But let's remember, he made a wonderful start from second position on the grid. He went straight into the lead. He built up this wonderful lead. He made his pit stop without losing the lead. And now he comes through the Variante Bassa to start his 60th and final lap. Warwick still following him. In fact, Warwick closer to him now even. And I think that Prost is not in trouble. I think that that was a car parked there. That was somebody's car parked there. I have a suspicion that could have been de Cesaris. Warwick almost unlapping himself on Prost there. I think we've just seen de Cesaris's car parked. Andrea de Cesaris, there he is. He was third. He's out of the car. It's smoking quietly. He's out of the race. That is very, very cruel luck indeed for Andrea de Cesaris. That wonderful drive from the pit lane to third place has come to an end, and de Cesaris is out. Now that will have promoted Elio De Angelis to third place, and indeed it will have promoted Derek Warwick, following Prost in the picture now, to fourth place. So despite all Warwick's problems, he's now fourth, but Alain Prost goes out of Aqua Minerale for the final time. On up the hill towards the Variante Alta, and a little way from the Ferrari flag, so they're not totally chauvinistic, these Ferrari fans in the crowd. They have given Alain Prost a little wave, but they're really waiting. In fact, they're giving him quite a big wave now, knowing it's his final lap. But I still think they're going to reserve their biggest wave for René Arnoux, who's going to finish second. Ravazza for the last time. Alain Prost is going to go into an 11-point lead by our calculations in the World Championship if nothing goes wrong between this final Variante and the checkered flag. Warwick follows him home in fourth place. The checkered flag now is waiting. Alain Prost comes up to the line. The McLaren mechanics are delighted. There is the checkered flag. Alain Prost wins his second Grand Prix of 1984. Here's René Arnoux to finish second for Ferrari. Stefan Belloff follows him home in the Tyrrell in fifth place. And that's Elio De Angelis. Third man, Elio De Angelis, has come to a stop completely. Having completed 59 laps, he is stopped, we guess, out of petrol out on the circuit. But now that's not going to lose him his third place, because fourth man Derek Warwick has himself only completed 59 laps. So Elio De Angelis finishes third despite being stuck out on the circuit. Warwick is fourth, Belloff fifth, and Boutsen sixth. And look at the crowd, they're already right on the track.
Alain Prost going from his second qualifying position to a flag-to-flag finish here at the San Marino Grand Prix. Alain, you got a clean break in the beginning of the race, and it was fairly easy for you in the opening laps. Is that correct?
Yes, it was correct. I did a good start. It was very important for me because, you know, the Brabham is very difficult to pass in each track. And after my good start, I only control the race, and it was easy for me. The only problem was in the middle of the race, I spun because the brake pedal is going down completely, because I think my carbon fiber brakes were a bit too hot.
Now, when you spun, you managed to keep the engine running. If you would have killed your engine, you would have never started it again.
Yeah, sure.
How did you keep your motor running during a 360-degree spin?
You know, I practiced last week in Zolder. I did exactly the same.
Right. Now listen, once you made your pit stop, a very quick pit stop.
I don't know. It's difficult to know into the car.
It was a very quick pit stop. Then did the brakes come back after you had time to cool down, or?
No, because you know, when I spun, the brakes were, the tires were almost finished, you know, because after, my car was very quick anyway. Even at the beginning I was just a bit more slow, but only hard on brakes, and I've tried to be a bit less hard on brakes, and it was okay. It was fantastic.
So you kept everything cool the second half of the race, the tires, brakes, and yourself?
Only brakes, because engine and tires and myself were okay.
24 points in the championship now, Elaine. You must feel good about that.
I am good, because I think we must do a very good race in Dijon, in 2 weeks because I like this track and I would like to win in front of the French public.
What Monsieur Prost really means is he wants to beat the Renaults, his old team, on their home ground, and Renault man Derek Warwick is still in second place in the World Championship, but Prost has an 11-point lead. René Arnoux and Elio De Angelis now joint third, and McLaren an enormous lead in the Constructors' Championship. 2 weeks hence, it all starts again at Dijon. We'll be there, so join us.